The shuttle rocked violently as it entered the atmosphere of Varyon Prime. The sky outside the viewport glowed hazy violet, laced with streaks of plasma that clung to the hull like burning vines. Inside, the lone human sat with his wrists bound together by magnetic cuffs, silently watching the alien world grow larger. Captain Orion Hale, once a decorated soldier of the Terran Defense Legion, now labeled a disgrace, a man erased from every honor he had ever earned. He kept his gaze steady, refusing to show discomfort as the guards seated across from him gripped their weapons tighter. They were Variothi soldiers, tall and sharp-eyed with iridescent patterns along their temples. Every single one of them looked ready to shoot him if he as much as breathed the wrong way. One of them spat on the floor near his boot. "Humans do not belong here." Orion heard those words without them being spoken. He had heard enough in the months since the Zero's outpost incident. They claimed he abandoned his squad during a retreat that turned into a massacre. They needed a scapegoat. He became the obvious pick, the only survivor, the failure. He said nothing then. He said nothing now. As the landing gear deployed, the shuttle trembled and sank into the military docking bay outside the Variothi capital. The doors hissed open, revealing a team of armored guards waiting with stiff posture. The commander stepped forward. Cold silver eyes landed on Orion. "Remove his restraints. The princess awaits." At that, Orion lifted his head. Princess. He had been told only the basics. A royal assignment. Bodyguard detail. Humans were not welcome in Varyon Prime, yet they wanted him. That alone made no sense. The cuffs released and fell heavy onto the metal floor. Orion rubbed his sore wrists as the commander shoved him forward. "Walk, and keep your eyes down. The princess does not tolerate insolence from humans." Orion said nothing and moved along the walkway. The air was cooler here than he expected, perfumed with unfamiliar flora. Strange structures carved from crystal and steel towered over the city. Alien beauty, yet sharp and hostile. The escort led him into a grand hall with walls lined by shimmering curtains of holographic starlight. And at the far end, seated upon a throne shaped like a winged beast, was the one he had been summoned to protect. Princess Avelia Varen. She was nothing like the monstrous image many humans believed of the Variothi. Her skin was a smooth sapphire tone. Strands of silver hair fell behind a delicate circlet adorned with glowing stones that pulsed like a heartbeat. She was graceful, radiant, beautiful, and her eyes, those eyes blazed with contempt. So this is the human they send. She leaned forward with a voice soft like velvet yet razor-sharp with disdain. The murderer of his own kind. Orion held her gaze. "I am no murderer." Silence filled the room. Guards visibly tensed, waiting for the princess to demand his execution for daring to speak. But she simply smiled, a bitter curve of the lips. "You will serve as my personal bodyguard. Not by choice, by punishment. If you disobey, you die. If you fail, you die. If you shame me, you die. There is no scenario where you walk free." Orion's fists tightened. He was brought here not for service, but humiliation. "Why me, Your Highness?" "Because it disgusts me. And because the Council insists that humans must learn their place. You will guard me as a reminder that even the most disgraceful humans can still serve meaningfully under Variothi rule." She stood. The hall lights glittered against the regal armor that hugged her frame. "You will reside in my palace. You will follow every command. You will never speak to me unless spoken to. You will never forget that your existence here is charity granted by my mercy." Orion did not bow. He refused. His pride was battered but not broken. A guard struck him across the back of his knees, forcing him down. "Bow to your princess." He tasted anger like metal on his tongue but lowered his head. For now. Avelia smirked as if she had already won every battle between them. Escort him to the quarters prepared for the pet. The word stabbed deeper than the blow. As he was dragged through corridors of cold beauty, he made a silent vow. He would protect her as ordered. He would obey every rule necessary. He would survive. And when his moment came, he would reclaim everything they stole from him. Far behind him, Princess Avelia watched him disappear around a corner. Her hatred simmered warmly in her chest, a fire fueled by memories of war and betrayal. Humans had taken too much from her world. She would never trust one, especially not him. But fate had already chosen to tangle their lives together. And before long, the princess who despised humans would owe hers to one. The guest quarters were far from welcoming. Orion entered a compact metallic room with a narrow bed, a small locker, and a single dim light strip running along the ceiling. The walls were bare, the air too sterile, and the door sealed shut behind him with a cold hiss. Felt less like lodging and more like a containment cell. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. Every part of him ached from holding himself together. He wanted to scream, to punch the walls, to break free and run. But he stayed still. He had learned long ago that frustration wastes energy he needed to survive. His mind wandered to the Zero's outpost. The explosion, the screams, the fire raining from the sky. They pinned the losses on him, claiming he ignored orders and fled while his squad died. He had tried to save them, every single one. Yet that truth was buried by those who needed a scapegoat. Now he was here on an alien world, serving beings who saw his kind as animals. A living reminder of failure. A humiliation carefully crafted by the Terran government and Variathi Council together. He leaned back, closing his eyes for the first time since his capture. Exhaustion finally pulled him under. Time passed, an unmeasured stretch of restless sleep. His dreams flickered with fire and broken voices calling his name. When he woke, alarms blared through the palace. A voice echoed through the intercom. All personnel to defensive stations. Palace lockdown in effect. Orion sat upright, instantly alert. He stood and approached the sealed door, pushing his ear against it. Boots thundered on the other side. Shouts in the Variathi language filled the hall. His gut clenched. Something was wrong. Something real. Not a drill. He looked up when the door slid open. 2 guards rushed in. Human. With us. Now. Orion followed, suspicion sharp in his chest. They ran through twisting corridors bathed in flashing red lights. Each turn revealed soldiers preparing rifles, shields, defensive formations. What happened? Orion asked. No words were offered, only a shove forward. They emerged into a grand balcony that overlooked a massive courtyard outside the palace. Avelia stood near the railing surrounded by armored guards. The violet sky crackled with distant explosions. Smoke billowed from the outskirts of the capital. Avelia noticed Orion and her eyes sharpened. Why is he here? She snapped. One guard responded. He is assigned to protect you, princess. Protocol requires. She cut him off with a glare strong enough to silence the sun. I do not need a human to protect me. Orion spoke calmly. You are under attack. Pride can wait. Avelia looked at him like he was the one threatening her life. Then a thunderous roar boomed overhead. The courtyard walls trembled as a hulking metallic beast descended from the smoke clouds. A gunship of unknown origin. Its cannons aimed directly at the balcony. Someone screamed. Guards activated shields. Avelia's posture stiffened, but she didn't move. Orion lunged. He grabbed her by the shoulders and tackled her behind a marble column just as the first blast hit. The balcony erupted in a shower of shattered stone and searing plasma. Several guards were thrown over the railing in bursts of scattered armor and light. Avelia gasped as Orion shielded her body with his own. Dust filled the air. Heat scorched his back. The gunship circled around for another strike. "Move." Orion grabbed her arm and pulled. "Do not touch me." She tried to pull away. "Then stay here and die." "Your choice." Her jaw clenched. She followed. They sprinted down the nearby stairway into the palace interior. More explosions shook the structure. Orion took the lead, using his soldier instincts to find the safest path. "Where are we going?" A guard shouted. Orion pointed toward a reinforced chamber. "That room. We can lock down from inside." The guards hesitated, uncertain whether to obey the human. Avelia's glare forced the decision. "Do as he says." They rushed inside. The steel doors shut behind them with a heavy clang. Breathing was ragged, fear thick in the air. Orion pressed his ear to the door, listening for troop movement outside. Whoever attacked came prepared. Their weapons were advanced, their forces precise. Avelia stood in the middle of the room, eyes narrowed at him. Her voice was quiet yet drenched in venom. "Do not think your actions excuse what you are." Orion stared back. "I don't need your thanks. Just stay alive." She looked away quickly, as if the idea of needing him physically stung. Minutes crawled. The bombardment continued, then slowed. Distant screams faded into silence. The palace tremors ceased. One guard approached the princess. "Enemy forces retreat. Our air defenses prevailed." Avelia exhaled slowly, relief mixed with humiliation. A human saved her, protected her. A truth she refused to acknowledge. She stepped closer to Orion, expression unreadable. Her voice was low. "Touch me again without permission and I will kill you myself." Orion leaned against the wall, equally calm. "Next time I might let the explosion take you then." They locked eyes, two storms crashing without a victor. But the world outside had changed. Their hatred had shifted. She was alive because of him. Her people knew it. He knew it. And she could not erase that. The first seed of something dangerous had rooted itself between them. Not trust, not friendship, but possibility. The room remained sealed for longer than Orion expected. Minutes stretched, turning tension into something sharp and suffocating. Guards paced, checking weapons and comm units. Avelia stood silently near the center, as still and composed as a statue carved from crystal. Only her eyes betrayed movement, flicking toward Orion when she thought he wasn't looking. He noticed every glance. Finally, the door slid open and a Variathi officer stepped in. "Royal security has cleared the upper levels. Princess, it is safe to return to your chambers." Avelia gave a short nod and strode out without a word. Her guards moved with her. Orion waited to be instructed. None came. He hesitated a moment before following, refusing to be left behind in hostile territory. The halls of the palace were scarred with battle. Scorch marks streaked across pillars and floors. Debris from shattered architecture lay in piles along the walls. Bodies of fallen soldiers had already been removed, but the metallic scent of burnt armor lingered. Orion scanned everything with a soldier's sharp eye. The attack was not random. The gunship targeted the princess directly. Whoever launched the assault wanted her dead. Someone would try again. Avelia's chambers were guarded by elite warriors wearing obsidian armor. Orion attempted to follow her inside, but two guards blocked his path with crossed spears. Humans remain outside. Before he could protest, Avelia turned slightly. "Let him in." The guards stiffened, surprised, but obeyed. Orion stepped inside, sensing the room's atmosphere shift. Avelia had a private suite that radiated royal elegance. Translucent walls showed the dim city skyline, alive with emergency lights. A bed draped in shimmering fabric rested under floating lanterns that pulsed like fireflies. The environment softened the hard edge she wore like armor. She slowly removed her crown and placed it on a pedestal. Without it, she looked less like a ruler and more like someone carrying a burden she never asked for. She kept her back to him as she spoke. You are a disgrace among your own people. That is clear. But you are also trained, experienced, far more than any human should be. Orion replied evenly. That is why I survived. Why I can keep you alive too. She turned to face him fully. Her voice sharpened. Do not misunderstand. You did not save me because I needed you. You saved me because you were ordered to. He stepped closer, though not too close. I saved you because that is my job. Whether you want my protection or not, I will give it. Her expression faltered for a brief fraction of a second, surprise flickering through her eyes like static. She masked it quickly. Your job is obedience. Orion tilted his head slightly. Protection and obedience are not the same. If I had been obedient, I would have waited for your command before tackling you earlier. Then you would be dead. Silence. The princess looked as though she warred with herself inside. Every instinct in her wanted to reject him, deny his worth, push him as far away as possible. Yet reality refused to bend to her hatred. She needed him. You speak too boldly for someone so disposable, she murmured. And you are alive because I did, he answered. Their eyes clashed again. Not with rage this time, with tension that neither understood. Avelia stepped back, creating distance that allowed her to breathe. She motioned toward a small door to the side. Your quarters have been relocated, adjacent to mine. You will remain within 5 meters of me at all times unless ordered otherwise. If I detect even a hint of betrayal, I will tear your heart from your chest myself. Orion nodded once. Understood. She watched him go with an expression she didn't understand. He had no right to be confident. He had no right to speak to her as an equal. And yet he did. And worse, she did not hate it as much as she should. When the door to his new quarters shut, Orion finally allowed himself to exhale. The room was slightly larger but still plain. A bed, a desk, a narrow window overlooking the courtyard where the attack began. He sat and allowed his body to feel the aftershocks of combat. His muscles trembled from adrenaline he had forced under control. His back burned from the blast's heat. His palms were scraped raw from gripping the princess and digging into stone. But he was alive. She was alive. That mattered. He thought of her face when he dragged her to safety. Not anger, not arrogance. Fear. Real. Human-like. He replayed the moment she looked at him after the blast. The vulnerability in her eyes lasted barely a heartbeat, but it was real. A princess raised to hate humans, relying on one to survive. He knew walls like hers could crumble. Slowly, then suddenly. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime at the wall console. A holographic interface displayed an order from Palace Security. Human Bodyguard Orion Hale. Report to the princess's tactical briefing room at dawn. Protocol training required. Attendance mandatory. He smirked faintly. Mandatory. Everything about his life was mandatory now. He lay back on the bed, lacing his hands behind his head. The ceiling lights dimmed automatically. Tomorrow would bring more danger, more hostility, more chances to prove himself or die trying. He wasn't sure which outcome the princess preferred, but he knew which one he would fight for. Somewhere beyond the palace windows, distant thunder rolled. The threat wasn't gone. It was simply waiting, and so was he. Tomorrow they would stand side by side again, enemies tethered by fate, whether they liked it or not. Morning arrived with a pale blue glow filtering through translucent windows. Orion sat on the edge of his bed, already dressed in the standard palace security uniform. Felt strange wearing Variathi armor. It was too light, too quiet. A soldier could forget he was even wearing protection, and that bothered him. He tightened the straps anyway and stepped out into the hallway, where two guards waited with humorless expressions. Follow. The princess requires your presence. He walked with them through shining corridors. Servants and officers cast wary looks at him as he passed, their disdain barely concealed. To them, he was contamination, a reminder of the enemy they still considered humans to be. The tactical briefing room was already active when they arrived. Glowing holographic maps hovered over a round table. Generals and advisors surrounded Princess Avelia as she studied the images with a sharp gaze. Orion entered silently, but she noticed immediately. Human. Sit. Her tone was clipped, but calmer than before. He obeyed without comment. One of the generals eyed Orion with a curl of their lip. Why keep him here? He is not one of us. Avelia answered coldly. He saved my life. That alone gives him more value in this matter than you questioning my decisions. The general stiffened. Orion hid his surprise well. She could have dismissed him. Instead, she defended him. Briefly, sharply, unexpected. Avelia pointed toward a sector of the city map. This is where the air assault originated. We intercepted partial transmissions identifying the attackers as the Vrax Dominion. Orion leaned forward. He had heard that name once before. A militaristic faction known for silent coups and strategic assassinations. They do not waste resources, Orion said. If they attacked here, they knew the palace defenses. They knew your schedule. Avelia's eyes narrowed. You imply a traitor. He nodded. Someone fed them information. Gasps and murmurs rippled around the table. Accusing treason within the palace was dangerous. Avelia silenced the room with a gesture. Continue. Orion pointed to the map. The gunship targeted the balcony directly. They knew where you would be and when. It wasn't random. They wanted to finish it quickly. He approached a holographic panel and zoomed in. This flight path avoids most anti-air defenses. That means an insider helped plan the route. Avelia studied him with conflicted interest. She hated that she needed his expertise, hated that he was right, but she hated ignorance more. We must secure our internal communications. No officer acts alone until I order it. She turned to her guards. And humans are to remain monitored at all times. Her gaze flicked to Orion. Especially this one. He didn't flinch. Instead he forced a thin smile. Good to know I am special. The general scoffed. Avelia's expression hardened into a command. Enough. Dismissed. The others bowed and exited. Only she and Orion remained. There is something I must know. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. Zero's outpost. Did you abandon your squad to save yourself? His breath caught. The accusation that ruined his life repeated by someone who didn't even believe he deserved to answer. I tried to save them, he said quietly. Command ordered a retreat too late. I carried the wounded until my legs failed. When I woke in the evacuation ship, I was alone. And they needed someone to blame. Avelia absorbed his words without speaking. There was no pity in her eyes, but the edge of cruelty had softened. You expect me to believe that? No, he replied. I expect you to judge me by what I do here. Her gaze softened further, though she fought against it. You risked yourself for me. Once, she murmured. Once so far. He held her eyes. Give me more chances. Her chest rose with a slow breath. a battle waged in her expression. Hatred versus necessity. Fear versus reason. She gestured toward the exit. Training begins now. Keep up or step aside. He followed her through the palace until they reached an outdoor training courtyard. It spanned across multiple terraces of polished stone and crystal barriers. Dozens of elite Variathi soldiers trained through coordinated drills, their bodies strong and precise. Avelia motioned toward a rack of training weapons. Blades glowing with contained plasma energy hummed with potential. Orion selected one carefully, testing the weight. It was lighter than steel but dangerous in skilled hands. Avelia watched him with folded arms. Let us see if a human can hold a sword properly. He smirked. Careful, princess. You might bruise your ego if I outperform your best warriors. Whispers spread among the soldiers watching. A challenge. Avelia pointed to a tall soldier clad in reinforced armor. Commander Rytek. Show the human how we train here. Rytek stepped forward, towering over Orion by at least a head. His weapon activated with a loud crackle of light. You should kneel now, human. Save yourself humiliation. Orion stepped into position. If I wanted to kneel, I would have stayed on Earth. Avelia's eyes widened slightly. The match began. Rytek charged with a roar. His strikes were powerful, aggressive, driven by prejudice as much as skill. Orion dodged the first two swings, then blocked the third, sparks flying from the plasma blades. He fought smart, efficient, human adaptability refined by battlefield scars. Rytek swung downward. Orion sidestepped and swept his leg, knocking the massive soldier off balance. With a quick spin, Orion brought his blade to Rytek's throat before he even hit the ground. Silence fell across the courtyard. The commander stared up in disbelief. Soldiers froze mid-drill. Avelia's lips parted. She had expected a humiliation, but not for her own champion. Orion stepped back, deactivating his blade. You said keep up. Avelia approached slowly, expression conflicted again. For the first time, a hint of admiration surfaced in her eyes. Perhaps you are not entirely useless. He gave a short bow. High praise coming from you. She turned sharply and walked away before he saw the faint flush on her cheeks. But he noticed. Her guard noticed. And something unspoken shifted again between them. Enemies still. But no longer just that. Not anymore. Whispers spread through the palace like wildfire. A human, the disgraced soldier from Earth, had bested Commander Rytek. The tale twisted and grew with each retelling. Some called Orion a dangerous animal. Others claimed the princess favored him. All agreed on one thing. He was no ordinary guard. Orion spent the afternoon undergoing security protocol training, though it felt more like surveillance. Every action he took was documented. Every result measured. Each moment judged with silent hostility. When the final drill finished, Avelia dismissed her soldiers. Orion stepped forward to hand back the training weapon. She stopped him with a sharp glance. Keep it, she said. It seems you know what to do with it. He secured the blade at his side. The princess moved into the palace gardens, where trees glowed faintly and flowers sang gentle harmonic tones when brushed by the wind. The beauty here contrasted the hostility within its walls. She spoke without facing him. You fight like someone who values life more than pride. Orion considered his answer. I have seen what pride costs. I have no desire to pay that price again. She walked along a path lined by shimmering vines. His footsteps followed a respectful distance behind. After a moment, she shifted her gaze toward him. You should know that saving me will not erase my distrust of humans. You are here because the council believes your presence is strategic, not because I accept you. Orion nodded. I do not expect acceptance. Only a chance to prove I am not what you believe. Her eyebrow lifted with interest. You remain bold. I remain honest. That stopped her. She turned fully, her expression unreadable. Her eyes searching his like she might find a lie hidden behind them. Do not pretend we are equals, she warned softly. Orion lowered his voice. Then allow me to show you what equality looks like. The air between them tightened. It was no longer anger, no longer fear, something more dangerous. Before she could respond, a high tone beeped from the comm device on her wrist. The security alert. She tapped the interface. Her face drained of color. Saboteurs were found inside the palace. They planted an explosive device near the central power core. Emergency squads were already responding. Orion stepped closer. Let me handle it. Avelia hesitated, reluctance clear in her face. Sending him alone risked everything. But she looked into his eyes, and for the first time, trust surfaced, uncertain but real. Go, and do not fail. He moved with speed, following the map on his wrist display. Soldiers were already flooding the area. The power core chamber occupied the deepest level of the palace, a massive structure pumping energy through crystalline conduits. The corridors rumbled as Orion descended the stairwell. Shouts echoed, metal clanged, and smoke drifted like stained fog. Then he saw them. 3 figures wearing Vrax Dominion armor, hunched over a bulky device wired into the core's control hub. They spotted him and opened fire instantly. Orion dived behind a support pillar. The plasma bolts burned through the stone, melting chunks that dripped like molten glass. He fired back with a blast rifle taken from a fallen guard. One enemy collapsed. Another tossed a photon charge toward him. Orion rolled aside, the explosion shaking the floor and showering sparks from the ceiling. He moved fast, striking with precision. A second saboteur fell. The last one retreated deeper into the control room, trying to activate the bomb's manual trigger. Orion sprinted and slammed him into the wall. The enemy fought viciously with a dagger, slashing toward Orion's throat. Orion twisted the blade away and delivered a hard strike that knocked the attacker unconscious. The bomb hummed with an ominous glow. The timer counted down. 30 seconds. Orion examined the wires. Alien tech. Unknown configuration. One wrong move would vaporize the palace. 20 seconds. He looked at the core terminals. Overload conduits. Redirection channels. 15 seconds. He made a choice. Not perfect, but calculated. He ripped out the primary synchronizer and kicked the bomb away from the core. 10 seconds. He dove behind the console just as the bomb detonated. The blast shook the chamber, throwing him violently across the floor. Silence followed. Heavy. Brutal. Orion groaned, pushing himself up. His arms trembled. His ears rang. But he was alive. He staggered out of the chamber. Guards rushed to secure the area. The palace lights flickered back on. Princess Avelia arrived moments later. Her eyes immediately found him. Relief washed over her walls before she snapped them back up. She approached with slow steps. You stopped it. Yes, he answered breathlessly. You could have been killed. He shrugged. That seems to be a common theme here. For the first time, she did not hide her reaction. Her voice softened. You have saved me twice now. Orion straightened. I do not keep score. I protect what I am assigned to protect. No. Her tone shifted, almost whispering. You protect because that is who you are, not what you are ordered. He blinked. Those words hit deeper than any blow. Avelia looked down, avoiding his stare. Her voice tightened again, protective of her vulnerability. Do not mistake this for approval. I am simply acknowledging a fact. She turned abruptly and began walking back toward the upper levels. Orion remained still for a moment, breathing in the metallic air, feeling the ache of survival and something new stirring inside him. She hated humans, yet twice her life had rested in human hands. The walls she built so high now had cracks. Small ones, but cracks spread, and foundations shift. He followed her quietly, because where she walked now, danger followed. And so did he. Night draped itself over Varyon Prime like a velvet shroud. The palace, usually radiant with soft starlight illumination, now felt darker, quieter, as though holding its breath after the attack. Additional guards patrolled every corridor. The tension lingered like smoke. Orion stood at his new post inside the princess's antechamber, a position that allowed him to see her room door and the hall beyond. He remained alert, weapon holstered at his side, muscles tight beneath the borrowed armor. Inside, Avelia prepared for rest. Orion could hear faint sounds through the gilded door, the soft clink of armor being removed, the whisper of luxurious fabric against skin, the quiet sigh of exhaustion she would never allow anyone to witness. He did not look. He listened only for threats. Despite everything, his thoughts betrayed him. Twice today he saved her. Twice she looked at him not with hatred, but something else. Something she fought desperately to crush. Humans do not belong here. Yet he was here. The door opened. Avelia stepped out wearing a long silver nightgown that flowed like liquid moonlight. Her hair, usually bound by royal adornments, cascaded freely over her shoulders. Without armor or crown, she looked less like a ruler and more like someone his age struggling to carry the weight of a planet on her back. Orion quickly snapped his gaze forward, refusing to let his eyes linger too long. Avelia paused before him, folding her arms. You should rest, human. You cannot protect me if you collapse from fatigue. He shook his head. Sleep later. Watch first. Her eyes flicked over him with reluctant respect. You are relentless. He met her gaze. So are you. She looked away, annoyed by the truth. She moved to the balcony, and Orion followed at a short distance. Below, the city still flickered with recovery efforts. Smoke trailed lazily into the night sky. Avelia rested her hands on the railing. The wind carried a cool scent of nocturnal blossoms. Do humans recover so quickly from trauma? She asked quietly. Or do you simply bury it until it destroys you from within? Orion stood beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. The latter, he said, but we try to keep it buried for as long as necessary. Avelia studied him from the corner of her eye. When my mother died during the war, I vowed to never show weakness again. Not to my enemies, not even to my people, especially not to myself. Orion nodded, voice somber. Strength is necessary, but isolation is not strength. It becomes a cage. She snapped her eyes to him. And you think you know my cage? I know the walls feel safer than leaving them, he answered softly. Avelia's lips tightened, conflicted. She was not used to anyone speaking to her like this, with steadiness, with understanding. She hated how he saw through her armor. You are wrong, she said, though it lacked conviction. I choose this. He did not argue. Instead, he simply looked out at the city with her, sharing silence that strangely felt like connection. Suddenly, a glimmer of movement caught Orion's attention, a shadow along the rooftop across the courtyard. His instincts flared. He stepped in front of Avelia just as a sniper bolt streaked through the air. The plasma shot hit his shoulder, burning through armor. Pain exploded like lightning. He gritted his teeth, pulling her down behind the railing as more bolts fired. Guards shouted. Alarms triggered. The night shrieked into chaos. Avelia's eyes widened as she saw the blood burning through his armor. "You are wounded." He pressed his hand against the injury, forcing himself to stand. "I have had worse." He took aim at the rooftop with his pistol and fired a precise countershot. The shadow collapsed, falling silently from the edge. Enemy neutralized. Breathing hard, Orion leaned against the wall. The wound throbbed, but he stayed upright. Avelia moved closer, too close, examining the injury. Her fingers hovered near his shoulder, hesitating. Touching him would betray concern. Not touching him might cost his life. Her voice wavered. "Medical unit." "Now." Orion shook his head. "Others might still be here. I stay." "You stay behind me." She looked furious. At him. At the attackers. At her own heart trying to care. "You cannot shield me forever." "Maybe not," Orion said, jaw clenched. "But I can try for as long as I breathe." Her eyes widened. The sincerity hit her like a physical force. He grimaced, swaying slightly. Blood seeped through his fingers. Avelia stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. "Enough. You will sit. That is an order." She guided him into her room and sealed the balcony doors. Avelia retrieved a medical kit, checking supplies with practiced hands. Warriors on Varyon Prime trained for combat and survival, royalty included. "Sit still," she commanded. He grunted as he obeyed. She carefully cut away the burned fabric. The wound was deep but clean. No shrapnel. She applied a regenerative gel that glowed pale blue. Orion exhaled sharply. "You are gentler than you pretend." Her cheeks colored faintly. "Do not misinterpret my actions. I need my guard alive." He smirked through the pain. "Of course. I exist only for your convenience." Her hand paused on his shoulder. "No, that is not what I meant." The admission surprised them both. She resumed applying the gel more softly this time. Her fingers brushed his skin. He felt the warmth of her touch like electricity. For a moment their eyes met, not as human and alien, not as soldier and royalty, as two people who had saved each other. Danger pressed them together. Trust tried to grow. Avelia pulled away abruptly, breaking the spell. "Get some rest," she said. "That is an order as well." Orion nodded slowly. "As you wish." She turned off the lights, but the room was not completely dark. The faint bioluminescent patterns on her skin glowed like starlight. She returned to her bed, lying awake. Orion leaned back against the wall, forcing himself to remain alert despite the throbbing pain. He watched the moonlight frame her silhouette through the sheer curtains. Strong, fierce, vulnerable in ways she hated to admit. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "I will not fail you." Her eyes were closed, but she heard him, and for once, she did not try to deny how much she wanted it to be true. In the quiet darkness, the distance between them had never felt smaller. At dawn, Orion woke before the palace lights rose. His shoulder still throbbed from the sniper shot, but the regenerative gel had sealed most of the damage. He stretched his arm carefully, testing mobility. The pain responded like a warning, but he could fight through it. Princess Avelia was already standing, fully armored and ready for the day. She did not look at him as she fastened her gauntlets. Yet she spoke with quiet firmness. "You should not be on duty. You are injured." Orion rose to his feet. "I have function and purpose. That is enough." Her eyes flicked to his shoulder, then away again. "Suit yourself. But if you fall in battle because you refused recovery, I will be furious." His lips twitched. "I will strive to avoid your fury." "You should strive to stay alive," she snapped. He followed her out into the hall. Palace security was doubled. Tension still clung to the air thicker than armor plating. Everyone knew another attack was possible. perhaps inevitable. Breakfast in the Grand Hall was a silent affair. Royal advisors and generals discussed security measures in hushed voices, while servants delivered trays of shimmering fruit and nutrient-rich broth. Orion remained standing, guarding Avelia's flank, ignoring the stares that burned into him like lasers. When the meal ended, Avelia pulled Orion aside. "We need to speak with the council. They are demanding answers after last night." Orion nodded. "Answers we do not yet have." She gave a bitter huff. "They prefer to blame someone quickly rather than seek truth slowly." Together they walked to the council chamber, a towering circular room filled with representatives of Varyon Prime's highest order. Their eyes turned toward the princess, then narrowed sharply when they noticed Orion. A senior counselor rose. "Princess, why does a human stand at your side? Surely your guard contingents are sufficient." Avelia's voice rang clear through the chamber. "This human saved my life twice in 2 days. His worth in my defense is no longer in question." The counselors murmured, displeased but silenced. Orion stood firm, chin lifted. He would not bow to scorn. Another counselor spoke. "We have uncovered evidence that the Vrax Dominion infiltrators received aid from within. Someone close. Someone trusted." Avelia's eyes darkened. "Then we hunt the traitor." The counselor's attention shifted pointedly to Orion. Perhaps the infiltration began when the human arrived. Orion met the accusation without blinking. "With all due respect, if I were working with the enemy, the princess would be dead." Avelia stepped forward. "You will accuse my chosen protector only if you wish to insult me as well." The counselor stiffened. "No offense intended." Avelia leaned closer, her voice colder. "Then choose your words more wisely." With tension thickening the room, the council meeting ended abruptly. In the corridor afterward, Orion spoke quietly. "They fear me." Avelia corrected him. "They fear what you represent. Change, threat, the unknown." She slowed her pace slightly, her voice softer. "It is much easier to hate what we do not understand." He studied her face. "And you? Do you understand me?" She did not answer immediately. Her gaze flickered, uncertain and conflicted. "I am trying," she admitted at last. That simple truth struck deeper than a blade. Before he could respond, an officer ran up to them, breathless. "Princess, we found a survivor from the saboteur team. They regained consciousness and asked to speak to you directly." Avelia and Orion exchanged a wary look. "Take us to them," she ordered. They were led to a secure interrogation room in the lower levels. The prisoner sat bound to a reinforced chair, armor stripped away, revealing pale gray skin and cold black eyes. A Vrax Dominion operative. Avelia stood before him with the weight of royalty in her stance. "Speak," she demanded. The prisoner smirked, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "You do not scare me, princess." Orion stepped closer. "Then I will." The prisoner flinched, eyes darting to Orion. Avelia lifted her chin. "Who inside my palace gave you access?" The operative chuckled darkly. "Someone who shares our belief that your rule must end." Avelia's eyes narrowed. "Tell me their name." The operative leaned forward, smile widening. "You humans think your corruption is unique, but Variothi are just as weak when offered power." Orion slammed his hand onto the table, leaning close. "Who helped you?" The prisoner whispered. "Someone with royal blood." Avelia froze. Her heart dropped into shadow. Orion's expression hardened. "Name them." But the operative leaned back, breathing slow. His pulse slowed too. His pupils dilated. Avelia gasped. "He took a poison." He collapsed lifeless before either could stop him. Silence fell like a blade. Avelia's voice trembled with restrained fury. Someone in my own family betrayed me. Orion stepped closer, steady and grounding. Then we find them, and we stop them. Avelia drew in a slow breath. When she looked up, fear no longer lingered in her eyes. Only determination and fire. I will not fall to those who hide behind shadows. Orion nodded once. You will not fall. Not while I stand. Their eyes held each other. Promise made without ceremony. Danger pressed closer. Trust grew deeper. And the line between duty and something more blurred further each passing moment. Because now their enemy was not just outside the palace walls. It lived among them. And the only thing more dangerous than hatred was betrayal from within. The palace suddenly felt different. Every corridor, every room, every familiar face now shimmered with the possibility of treachery. Avelia's steps were sharp as she walked, but Orion noticed the tension in her shoulders. Not fear, betrayal. That wound cut deeper than any enemy's weapon. Avelia entered a secure elevator and motioned Orion inside with her. Once the doors closed, she finally let the frustration in her voice surface. Family, my own blood. I always knew some envied my position, resented the throne. But aiding an assassination, opening the gates to our enemies. Orion leaned against the wall, watching her pace. Treason often comes from those closest. They get comfortable. They think they deserve more. She paused, turning toward him. You speak like someone who has experienced it. He hesitated, then nodded. On Earth, the hardest battles are not fought on the battlefield. They are fought in boardrooms and command centers. People you trust being the knife in your back. Avelia's eyes softened slightly, her anger shifting into something sadder. And what of you? Who betrayed you, Orion Hale? He looked down at his scarred hands. Command used me as a shield. When everything went to hell, they needed a villain. Someone the public could hate. Someone whose suffering would be quiet and convenient. Avelia stepped closer. That is not a betrayal of one man. That is a betrayal of honor itself. He gave a small, broken laugh. If honor mattered to them, I would not be here. Her gaze lingered on him a moment longer than it should have. Then the elevator chimed and the doors opened into a deep, restricted wing of the palace where only royals and top-level security were allowed. Inside sat the Central Intelligence Chamber. Walls lined with consoles, surveillance feeds, encrypted command channels. An artificial intelligence orb hovered in the center, projecting movement patterns throughout the palace. Avelia addressed the system. Trace all activity in palace channels for the past 24 hours. Focus on transmissions leaving the boundaries. The AI pulsed a response. A high-ranking signature pinged through the system. Royal gene access. Someone with clearance equal to hers. Avelia's heartbeat sharpened. She braced her hands on the console. This points to the council. Orion shook his head. Not necessarily. Royal family members usually have council access too. Could be a cousin, an uncle, even a sibling. She closed her eyes, pain rare in her expression. My father died years ago. My mother gone in the war. Only 2 others remain with royal blood. Orion remained silent, letting her speak when she was ready. Princess Kayla, my cousin. Brilliant, ambitious, overlooked by the council. She hesitated. And my brother, Prince Valor. Orion kept his posture steady. And which do you suspect? She whispered, I do not want to suspect either. Orion spoke gently. Want and truth rarely walk together. Avelia took a breath that shook ever so slightly. We must confront them both. But quietly. If one is guilty and realizes we know, they may strike again. Orion nodded. Then we start with caution. Observe. Gather evidence. Trust no one. She glanced up at him. I trust you. His heart stuttered. He hadn't expected that admission. He studied her face to see if she regretted saying it. She didn't look away. Before he could answer, alarms blared again. Not loud, not urgent, but a specific code. Unauthorized override. Royal Armory breach. Avelia stiffened. The Royal Armory held the most dangerous weapons in the kingdom. Orion drew his blade. We go now. They raced down the corridor, cutting through levels only royalty could enter. Guards attempted to follow, but Avelia commanded them to remain and secure all exits. If a family member is involved, she told Orion, I cannot risk alerting them. The doors to the armory were forced open, metal warped as though by explosive charges. Orion motioned for silence and they slipped inside. Racks of shimmering weapons lined the walls. Energy blades, plasma rifles, even prototype cannons. Many were missing. Avelia clenched her fists. This is preparation for war. Orion examined the ground. Burned floor marks. A trail of scorched footprints leading deeper into the vault. Someone rushed. Someone desperate. He signaled forward. Stay close. They followed the trail until a shadow moved near a lower vault. A figure wearing dark robes, standing before a secured containment case. Avelia called out, Kayla. The figure turned. Princess Kayla resembled Avelia in many ways. Tall, elegant, but where Avelia radiated controlled strength, Kayla's eyes gleamed with cold opportunism. Avelia stepped forward, confusion and hurt clashing in her voice. What are you doing? Kayla laughed softly. Finally, princess. You see the bars of your golden cage. She tapped the containment case, revealing a shimmering sphere within. The Void Heart. A forbidden energy core capable of unimaginable destruction. This war will drag Varyon Prime into ruin. Kayla hissed. Our council is weak, our defenses outdated. I will not allow our future to rot under your naive mercy. Avelia's voice broke. You tried to kill me. Kayla sighed as if speaking to a foolish child. Sacrifices must be made. Your death would unite the people under stronger leadership. Under me. Orion took a step forward. Put the weapon down. Kayla lifted a small device attached to her wrist. Too late. She smashed the case and the Void Heart whirled with violent purple energy, shaking the chamber. Kayla activated a teleport beacon and dissolved into a swirl of dark particles. Escaping. Orion cursed under his breath. Avelia staggered back. Shock, betrayal, rage all tangled inside her. Orion caught her arm. Eyes on me, princess. She looked up, breath trembling. My own blood wants me dead. He steadied her shoulders. Then they will have to go through me first. Her eyes burned with new resolve. We end this tonight, because now the enemy was not hiding anymore. She had a name. Princess Kayla had declared war, and Orion would protect Avelia through all of it, even if it cost him his life. The heavens above Varyon Prime darkened as night returned, but the city did not rest. Sirens echoed in distant districts, soldiers mobilized, and citizens sheltered in fear of what would come next. In the highest towers of the palace, Princess Avelia stood before a panoramic window, her reflection faintly superimposed against the swirling storm clouds. Her cousin, her own family, the betrayal still stabbed through her like broken glass. Orion stood a few paces behind, one hand resting near his weapon, the other pressed against his healing shoulder. He watched her carefully. She had not spoken since the confrontation in the armory. The silence was sharp, full of battle within her mind. Finally, she broke it. She must have had help. Kayla could not strike alone. Someone fed her council knowledge. Someone bypassed the palace's deepest locks. Orion nodded. Traitors always arrive in groups. One leader, many followers. Avelia's jaw tensed. We must find those followers before Kayla moves again. He stepped forward. Then let us start with who gains from your death. Her eyes flicked to him, sharp, evaluating, but grateful for the clarity. Prince Valor. My brother has always found comfort in our family's favor. But Kayla has the ambition to steal it all. Orion asked quietly, do you think your brother is part of this? Avelia closed her eyes, pain flickering behind her lids. Valor is many things. Weak, indecisive, even resentful, but not a murderer. Orion did not challenge her faith. He only said, sometimes those we protect disappoint us the most. She turned to him, and for the first time, her voice held vulnerability she could not hide. I do not want to lose more family. You will not, he said. Not if I can help it. She looked at him then. Really looked. No title. No barrier. Just Orion Hale, the man who had saved her more times than she would admit. But the moment shattered as a messenger burst into the room. Princess. Intelligence reports Kayla's forces gathering in the outer districts. They carry weapons stolen from our armory. A strike may occur before dawn. Avelia straightened immediately, royal authority returning like a shield snapping into place. Mobilize our defensive squadrons. Prepare evacuation for civilian sectors closest to the threat. No one is left behind. The messenger bowed and rushed out. Avelia turned to Orion. We confront her before she reaches the palace walls. If she brings that weapon here, thousands will die. Orion checked his gear. Just tell me where you go, and I follow. The words landed heavier than he meant them to. Avelia stared for a heartbeat too long, then nodded once. Come. We move now. They dashed through reinforced corridors to the palace hangar. A sleek command cruiser awaited, small but fast, ideal for rapid deployment. Soldiers saluted the princess as she climbed aboard, and Orion followed close behind. Inside, the cockpit hummed with energy. Pilots secured their flight path. Coordinates locked. Kayla's last known location. Engines ignited and the cruiser shot into the sky. The city below passed as blurred streaks of glowing architecture and rising smoke. Avelia braced herself against the railing near the viewport. I thought I knew her, she murmured bitterly. We trained together, laughed together, grew up under the same roof. How easily love twists into ambition. Orion stood beside her. Trust is a risk. Betrayal is the cost. She met his eyes. And what of you, human? Would you betray me? He didn't hesitate. Never. She searched his expression. There was no lie. No motive. Only a steadfast truth he had shown since the moment he saved her from that first blast. Her voice softened. Why do you protect me so fiercely? He drew a steady breath. Because I know what it feels like to be abandoned by those who should stand by you. I won't let that happen to you. Her throat tightened, not with tears. She would never cry, not where anyone could see. The pilot called out, Princess, we are approaching Kayla's location. The cruiser descended toward a sprawling industrial district near the outskirts. Fires burned on rooftops. Armed figures marched in formation. Loudspeakers blared Kayla's voice, rallying her followers. Avelia's jaw hardened. She is turning our people against the throne. The cruiser landed on a rooftop platform. Orion stepped out first, scanning the area. He motioned clear. Avelia marched forward, head high. Soldiers formed a perimeter around them. Below, in the courtyard, Kayla stood atop a transport vehicle, Voidheart sphere cradled in a stabilizing harness. Its energy rippled like a miniature storm contained. Kayla spotted them and smiled like a predator. Dear cousin, You came to watch the old rule crumble. Avelia shouted down. Call off your forces, Kayla. You are attacking your own people. Kayla's laugh rang sharp across the district. These people deserve a future without weakness, without mercy, and without you. She raised her hand and the crowd roared. Weapons pointed upward. Orion stepped close to Avelia, voice urgent. We need to get her away from the civilians. If she triggers that device, the damage will spread far. Avelia nodded. Then we end this before she has the chance. Without hesitation, she jumped from the rooftop platform, armor catching the wind to land in the courtyard like a falling star. Orion followed, rolling as he touched down beside her. Kayla's troops surged forward. Avelia ignited her plasma blade, its light fierce. Orion drew his own, shoulder burning but spirit unwavering. Their eyes met, a silent agreement. Side by side, together they charged into the storm. Enemies came from all sides. Orion blocked a rifle blast and kicked the shooter backward. Avelia cut through a soldier's weapon with flawless precision. The two moved like a single force, protective instinct and lethal skill intertwined. Laser bolts ricocheted. Metal clanged. The earth shook beneath them. Kayla watched, rage twisting her features. She shouted, "Enough!" She lifted the void heart. The air split open with violent purple lightning that crackled across the courtyard, sending soldiers flying, enemy and loyalist alike. Avelia faltered, shielding her eyes. Orion grabbed her shoulder and pulled her behind a fallen beam. The sphere pulsed louder, darker, power coiling faster. Kayla screamed above the storm she summoned. I will rebuild this world from the ashes of your failure. Orion's voice was low, teeth clenched. She's going to detonate it. Avelia looked at him, terror finally breaking through her wrath. Orion, she will kill everyone. He met her gaze. Then we stop her. No matter what. She nodded once, breath shaking. Not fear. Resolve. He squeezed her arm gently before stepping forward again. If destiny demanded someone fall tonight, he was ready. To protect her. To protect this world. To protect what they had become to each other. The storm raged. Their hearts raced. And the battle for Varyon Prime had only just begun. The courtyard convulsed under the destructive power of the Void Heart. Buildings trembled. Air fractured into arcs of violet lightning. The ground vibrated with the threat of total collapse. Civilians screamed in the distance while soldiers scrambled for cover. Orion tightened his grip on his blade. Smoke stung his lungs, debris stung his eyes, but he pushed forward. Beside him, Avelia's armor glowed faintly, reacting to the intense energy around them. Kayla stood on the elevated transport, void heart pulsing in her hands like a star about to implode. You cannot stop what is already in motion, Kayla shouted, voice distorted by the storm's energy. Avelia stepped forward, anger and heartbreak twisting inside her. Kayla, enough. This ends now. Kayla pointed the sphere downward. A surge of energy discharged, a beam that cracked the stone like a thunderbolt. Orion pulled Avelia aside just in time. His shoulder burned fiercely as he moved. The earlier wound protested every effort. He ignored it. Kayla's face twisted with fury. You hide behind your human pet now. Is that your great leadership? Orion stood tall, eyes fixed on the traitorous princess. You talk of strength, yet you endanger the very people you claim to protect. Kayla's eyes snapped to him, voice dripping venom. I will not be judged by an animal. Avelia's voice rose in a roar. He is more loyal than you will ever be. The word stunned even Kayla. Avelia raised her blade, its light blazing. You betray your blood, your world, and your honor. I will stop you, even if it breaks my heart. Kayla snarled. Then let it break. She thrust the void heart skyward, channeling its growing power. With each pulse, the sphere destabilized further. Orion whispered through clenched teeth. She's losing control. It will blow. We have seconds, Avelia replied. Orion scanned the battlefield. Soldiers fought, unaware the explosion would wipe them all out. He moved in front of Avelia, blocking incoming fire from Kayla's guards. She leaned forward and whispered quickly into his ear. I need you to get to her. Break the containment. If the energy disperses outward instead of concentrating. She didn't finish. There was only one possible outcome. Orion nodded. I can do that. But then his eyes locked with hers. She understood what that meant. The blast might engulf him. No. She shook her head fiercely. You will not throw your life away. He placed a steady hand on her arm. I told you, as long as I breathe, you do not fall. She grabbed his wrist, fingers trembling with a fear she had never allowed herself to feel. Orion, please. He smiled faintly, a softness in his eyes meant only for her. Stay alive, princess. Before she could stop him, he dashed forward through the chaos. Plasma bolts flew. He dodged one, deflected another. His shoulder screamed in agony, but he welcomed the pain. It kept him moving. Kayla saw him coming. She released a vicious pulse of energy that hurled Orion back into a pillar. His vision blurred. He groaned, forcing himself to rise again. Kayla's voice echoed over the wind. You think a broken human can challenge me? Orion wiped the blood from his lip. No, but I can distract you. He threw his plasma blade like a spear. Kayla raised the void heart to block it just as he intended. The blade hit the sphere, not damaging it, but throwing Kayla off balance. Avelia took that moment to leap forward, tackling her cousin off the platform. Both crashed to the ground, struggling fiercely. The void heart rolled free. Orion lunged. His fingers closed around the sphere. Energy surged through him like lightning. His muscles seized. His heart thundered wildly. Avelia screamed his name. Orion. Kayla shrieked with horror. No, do not touch it. But he already had. His body became the conduit. The sphere's power ripped through his nerves like fire, threatening to tear him apart from within. He gasped, forcing his focus on the glowing core. He redirected his stance, trying to aim the energy away from the courtyard. Avelia broke free of Kayla's grip and ran toward him. She reached out as if she could pull him from the burning light. Orion looked into her eyes. Deep, luminous, full of fear. He whispered hoarsely, "Trust me." With one final surge of will, he pushed the energy upward, away from the civilians, straight into the night sky. A pillar of violet fire shot upward through the clouds, splitting the storm open. The void heart cracked. A shockwave blasted outward. Avelia screamed as Orion was thrown across the courtyard. He slammed into the ground and lay unmoving. The light faded. The storm ended. Silence swallowed the world. Avelia stumbled, panting. Her eyes darted wildly until they found him. Orion. She sprinted to his side and fell to her knees. His armor was scorched. His skin burned. His eyes were closed. She pressed her hands against his chest, breath trembling. Orion, open your eyes. That is an order. He didn't move. Soldiers approached cautiously, lowering weapons as they realized Kayla's forces were breaking and retreating. Kayla herself lay stunned, cornered by loyal guards. Avelia leaned closer to Orion's face, her voice breaking into raw desperation. Do not leave me. Not now. Not after everything. Still no response. She pressed her forehead to his, tears threatening. You cannot die. Not for me. Then a weak voice cracked the silence. I told you, I am too stubborn to die. Her eyes widened. Orion's lips curled into a faint smirk, eyes flickering open. Relief crashed through her so hard she almost sobbed. She grabbed his hand, gripping it tightly. Foolish human. He breathed shallowly, but alive. She held his hand longer than she should have. Her walls shattered. He saved thousands. He saved her. But the war wasn't over yet. Kayla was down but not defeated. And the Void Heart was still dangerously unstable. Avelia brushed a trembling hand along Orion's cheek. Rest, she whispered. Just for a moment. I need you breathing for what comes next. His eyes closed again, trusting her voice to keep him here. The storm had quieted. But the dawn would bring consequences. And their hearts had crossed a boundary neither could deny anymore. Light crept into the industrial district as the artificial sun lamps began to restore order to the night sky. Smoke still curled from broken towers, and medical teams rushed across the ground to treat the wounded. Kayla's forces had scattered, abandoning weapons and fleeing into the shadows. Princess Avelia remained at Orion's side even as soldiers and medics surrounded them. Her grip on his hand never loosened. A medical officer knelt beside them and scanned Orion's burns and neural damage. Internal overload from direct energy contact. He needs treatment immediately. Avelia's voice was sharp, commanding. Then do it. Now. The medics transferred Orion onto a hover stretcher. As they moved, his head lolled to the side, and Avelia followed closely, refusing to let him out of her sight. His eyes flickered open for a second. Princess, he murmured. She leaned close. Yes, I am here. Did we stop her? Avelia nodded. For now, rest, Orion. That is all you must do. He exhaled and slipped into unconsciousness. He saved me again, she realized, and it felt far beyond duty, beyond survival. As he was rushed aboard a medical transport, Kayla was dragged past in restraints, fury smoldering in her eyes. You think this ends with me in chains, Kayla spat. You do not see the cracks in your kingdom. When the people learn you rely on a human to survive, they will turn on you as well. Avelia stepped toward her cousin, voice cold as steel. You chose war. I choose my people, and I will protect them with every weapon I have. Including him. Kayla sneered. Then you are weaker than I thought. No, Avelia said softly. You are. She signaled to guards. Take her away. Kayla was dragged off, screaming promises of a return. When the medics signaled they were ready, Avelia followed Orion into the cruiser. The moment the hatch sealed behind them, the air felt heavier. He lay motionless on the stretcher, breathing shallow and unsteady. His face was pale, pain etched into the lines of his jaw. Avelia sat beside him, unsure if he could hear her, but needing to speak anyway. You were not supposed to be here, she whispered. Humans were meant to be our enemies. But now, I cannot imagine facing this without you. She reached out, hesitated, then gently took his hand again. Stubborn, reckless human. You fight like you have nothing to lose. After a long moment, she added quietly, but you have me now. She startled herself with those words, heat rising to her cheeks. She looked away quickly. Her heart had crossed a line. There was no going back. The cruiser landed at the palace medical wing. Orion was rushed into a regeneration chamber, a capsule filling with healing nanites and stabilizing serum. Avelia stood outside the glass, refusing to leave. Hours passed. Officers came for updates. Counselors demanded decisions. She ignored them all. He saved your life. A voice inside her echoed. He risked everything. Finally, the chamber doors parted with a soft hiss. Orion stepped out slowly, breathing deeper, color returning to his skin. He looked exhausted but alive. Fully alive. Avelia's heart jolted. He took a step forward, testing his strength. A medic handed him a fresh uniform to replace his damaged armor. He put it on, then looked up, and she was there. They met in the center of the room. Avelia spoke first, her voice barely steady. "You almost died." He offered a faint smile. "I thought you wanted me alive." She swallowed. "I do." The air tightened around them, heat building in silence. For the first time, Avelia looked away, searching for composure she did not have. Orion gently tipped her chin up with a single finger. Her breath caught. "You saved me too," he said. "Many times. Not just on battlefields." Her eyes shimmered with emotion she struggled to suppress. "You changed everything, Orion." He moved a fraction closer. "And you changed me." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I hated humans. And now?" She searched his face. Every scar. Every truth. Every reason he refused to abandon her. "Now, you are the reason I fight." Those words ignited something fierce behind his ribs. He leaned closer, their foreheads nearly touching. His voice was soft, warm. "Avelia." Her name sounded different. Beautiful. Safe. Before either could speak again, an alarm blared through the medical wing. A council officer rushed in. "Princess, Kayla's followers are regrouping. They plan to storm the palace and free her before trial. The attack could begin any moment." Avelia closed her eyes briefly, forcing reality back into place. Duty. War. Survival. She stepped back reluctantly. The moment suspended but not broken. "Prepare the defenses," she commanded. "We will face them head-on." She turned to Orion, her voice regaining royal strength. But her eyes still held everything unspoken. "At my side, human." Orion nodded. "Always." Their connection had transformed into a bond unshakable by war or betrayal. What came next would decide the future of Varyon Prime. And neither would face it alone. The palace stood like a fortress against the darkening skyline. Defensive shields flared to life, casting shimmering barriers of light across the towering spires. Armed squadrons took formation in layered ranks, drones hovered overhead, and every corridor was fortified. War was coming to the royal doorstep. One last wave. Avelia walked with the presence of a queen forged by fire, each step echoing purpose. Orion matched her stride at her side, no longer a prisoner or tool, but something far more vital. They approached the command balcony where the city stretched beneath them, trembling on the edge of chaos. Avelia lifted her chin as a holographic display lit up before them, showing Kayla's remaining forces massing along the outer bridges. Kayla's voice crackled through intercepted transmissions. She demanded freedom, demanded allegiance. She weaponized fear. She painted Avelia as weak and dependent on a human. But the troops at the palace did not falter, because they had seen what the princess and her human protector accomplished together. Orion adjusted his new armor, custom-forged to combine human flexibility with Variothi resilience. The plasma sword at his side hummed, eager for battle. He watched the soldiers assemble below and felt a solemn calm settle over him. Avelia looked at him from the corner of her eye. "Ready, Orion?" He met her gaze. "With you. Always." Before they could say more, explosions thundered across the far bridges. Kayla's forces charged, their war machines unleashing destructive fire. The palace trembled as the assault began. Avelia raised her arm. "All units, hold the line." Orion stepped forward, shouting commands to ground troops and positioning defenders with quick tactical precision. He moved like he belonged here, because he did. Enemy soldiers swarmed like a tide rising to break the walls. Orion and Avelia rushed to the front line, descending into the courtyard where the first wave crashed. Plasma rifles lit the air, blades clashed, and the roar of engines shook the ground. Orion fought fiercely, every strike driven by purpose. He parried a blow meant for a guard, disarmed the attacker, and used the momentum to hurl them back. He pivoted, blocking a hail of shots as he shielded Avelia's back without needing to look. She moved just as fiercely. Her blade arced through the air in streaks of brilliant light, each motion graceful and lethal. Together they were unstoppable. Kayla's voice boomed above the chaos. "Cousin, surrender before you doom them all." Avelia shouted back, her voice unwavering. "This kingdom does not bow to traitors." Kayla emerged atop a massive assault walker, freed from her restraints by loyalists. Her eyes blazed with madness as she pointed a stolen cannon toward Avelia and fired. Avelia gasped, too close to dodge. Orion leapt into the path of the blast, taking the hit along his armor. He crashed against the wall, breath knocked from him, but he forced himself back up. Avelia stared at him, shock and fear flashing across her face. He coughed, spitting dust. "I am not done yet." Kayla growled with frustration. "Why do you protect her? You are human. She is your enemy." Orion stared up at her, voice firm. "She is my reason." Kayla roared and unleashed another barrage. Orion and Avelia dove behind cover as the shockwave shattered stone around them. "We need distance between her and her machine," Orion said. "Bring her down to us." Avelia nodded and leapt out, sprinting toward Kayla with impossible speed. The assault walker's turrets aimed, but Orion fired at the joints, forcing the machine to tilt. Avelia scaled the walker's side like a streak of silver lightning, blade carving into its power conduits. Sparks burst. The metal giant lurched violently. Kayla stumbled, losing balance. The walker collapsed with a metallic scream, falling into the courtyard. Kayla tumbled to the ground, her weapon skittering out of reach. Avelia advanced, sword raised. Kayla glared up at her, equal parts hatred and desperation. "You would kill family," Kayla spat. Avelia's voice shook. "I mourn what you became, but I will not let you destroy our world." Kayla lunged for a hidden blade, but Orion appeared from behind, kicking the weapon away. He held Kayla down with controlled strength. "It is over," he said. Kayla stared at him with wild disbelief. "You have bewitched her, poisoned her heart." Avelia stepped closer. "No, he saved it." Kayla thrashed against Orion's grasp. "You betray your race to love a human." Avelia's voice was soft, but more powerful than any weapon. "I do not betray anything. I choose." Kayla screamed, but guards took her away, finally defeated. The battlefield quieted. The enemy broke. The attack ended. And for the first time in weeks, the air was still. Orion stood, breathing hard, armor cracked but stance unbroken. Avelia sheathed her blade and approached him slowly. He met her halfway, exhaustion slipping into relief. "We did it." "No," she said gently. "You did." Again. His smile was faint but real. "Perhaps. But I did not do it alone." She looked at him, the weight of their journey shimmering in her eyes. Then she stepped closer. Close enough that her breath brushed his skin. Close enough that walls could no longer rise between them. "You changed my heart," Orion Hale. "You made me see beyond fear, beyond old wounds." He reached up and brushed a strand of her silver hair behind her ear. His voice dropped, tender. "You showed me I am more than my past, more than the failures they branded me with." Her hand lifted to his chest. His heartbeat thundered beneath her palm. "You are not a disgrace," she whispered. He leaned in. "And you are not alone." Their foreheads met, a quiet moment between soldiers who had bled for each other. Their lips brushed softly, tasting hope. Avelia deepened the kiss, one hand rising to his cheek. He responded with equal care. The world around them, wreckage, smoke, victory, faded into silence. When they finally parted, she rested her forehead against his. Her voice trembled with joy. "Stay with me," always he breathed. With the dawn rising behind them, the kingdom would rebuild. And together they would face whatever came next. A princess and a soldier, once enemies, now bound by trust, by fire, and by love. The future of two worlds stood in their hands, and neither would ever let go.